Hello everyone, welcome to today's ACCA Apprenticeships Week Employer Panel discussion. My name is Anne Lamb and I'm the Interim Director of Professional Qualifications at ACCA. I'm delighted to welcome our speakers today. We have Chloe Barr, Training and Apprenticeship Coordinator at Buzzacott, Charles Beddington, Senior Finance Manager at Walgreens Boots Alliance and Co-Chair of the Level 7 and Level 4 Accountancy Trailblazer Group, David Whitson-Black, Group Head of Talent Development at AZETS, and Gareth John, a Director at First Intuition. Today's webinar will last for 45 minutes and we'll be using some polls during the webinar to gather your thoughts on a few areas. And if you have any questions during the webinar, please use the Q&A widget to submit them. You can submit these during the presentation as well as after this presentation has finished. If you have any technical difficulties, please click on the Help widget. This is the circular icon and covers common technical issues. If you're not seeing slide movement in your console, or if you start having audio issues when it has been fine before, please refresh your browser session, either by hitting the refresh icon in your browser URL bar, or press F5 if you're a PC user, Command and R if you're a Mac user. Please note that Chrome is the preferred browser for this webinar platform. And now the introductions and housekeeping are completed. I'll now begin our session with an audience poll, which you should see on your screen. The first question will be, what have been the barriers to you taking on apprentices? And there'll be a variety of drop-down options there that you can click on. So we'll get started then on our questions to our panel. Firstly, we get a lot of questions around how employers might make apprenticeships work for them in areas that they think might be a challenge for their business. It would be good to hear how you've navigated some of these perceived challenges and made the apprenticeships work for you. And that might be in areas of off-the-job training, funding drawdown, lack of awareness of where to find information, etc., or a range of other areas. Charles, can I come to you first? Get your views on this?
Yeah, no problem at all. So, like you say, I've been part of the whole apprenticeship landscape for probably the last 8 years. So before Trailblazers and the new apprenticeships joined, I also looked after the old framework apprenticeships as well at Boots. They've been well entrenched in the apprenticeship landscape for a good few years. When the new news came out that obviously the government were going to take 5% levy to fund the new Trailblazers, obviously that rose quite a lot of eyebrows at Boots, given the size of our payroll bill. So the way that we work this and the way that we managed to get apprenticeships up and running in Boots is that we did a lot of work, pre-work, understanding the implications of what that meant and challenging head-on some of the issues that have been noted on the poll, one of which was off-the-job training. So everybody assumed that 20% off-the-job training meant that we had employees out of the business for a day a week, a bit like the old day release days before we had the advent of live online and weekend lectures from the training providers. So what we did is we did various things working with the government to understand the implications of that. So we did various audits of off-the-job training. So we went through the various definitions that we were given and worked out, broadly speaking, what our students already did that classified as off-the-job training. And I think most people will be surprised when they do this, how close you already get to the 20%. So if you take our standard pay-as-you-go student that is studying ACCA, a lot of their time you will help and support them, whether that's time for exam preparation, exam leave, study leave, going on courses in the day if they have to, etc., etc. But there are lots of other things that you probably don't readily spring to mind when you're thinking about the 20% off the job training. So what I can do is I'll run through a few and then we'll see what comes back on the poll if this is of interest, and then I can go into a bit more detail. So for example, we've talked about obviously off the job training for the learning. So if they go away in the day, that's a fairly obvious one. But there's things like work shadowing. So if your apprentice shadows you in a day or in a meeting, they are learning off the job. So things like this can be classified as off the job training, as long as they have an opportunity to reflect on what they've learned and document that. So they can't just rock up to meetings and say, oh yeah, that was interesting. They have to almost say, well, what did I learn in there and how can I relate that back to my job? there are other things as well. So not only can they can be mentors as well. So they can learn about being a mentor. So, for example, our second-year apprentices, they mentor the first-year apprentices. So they explain to them and work with them on that. And again, that's classed as off-the-job training because they're not actually doing their job, but it's helping them with their softer skills that they need to do as part of the apprenticeship. And building on that, we get them involved in things like the recruitment of the next cohort of apprentices. But who better to explain and talk to the apprentices than current apprentices? Getting them to do the interviews as well really helps them with their softer skills and the skills of getting them prepared to be a manager of the future. So thinking about how they do good interviews, how do we bring diversity and inclusion into those? How do we get away from all of the barriers that are making the headlines at the moment as we speak? So how do we have that fully inclusive and we don't recruit people that are basically mirror images of ourselves? There are other things that you can do as well. So, excuse me, visits to other businesses. So if your business, you're out and about, visiting other businesses can also be classified as off-the-job training. You can give them attendance at industry shows, workplace one-to-one performance reviews conducted by a line manager, that classifies as off-the-job training as well. Any training sessions that you do that are related to the role in general, so a lot of us will have to do ethics modules for the companies we work for. We'll also have to do anti-bribery and corruption modules. All of these other things, these health and safety things, all of these other mandatory learning that we have to do as part of being employed by a company, we can include in the 20% off job training, because you have to think of the role as a whole. Internal learning and development programs as well. So if there's internal stuff that we do, so whether that's going on how to use specific software, so Excel, Word, anything that helps them do their job can be classified as this. So again, as you start to build this up, you can see it's really easy to get up to this. And then if you are struggling, there are some ways that you can do other things as well. So for example, we send out our apprentices to stores for store placements, and we give them a project to do, and they will work in store for between 1 and 2 months, and they'll look at how their role fits into that environment and what they can garner from the stores, because ultimately the stores are our customers, and how they can bring that back to the role that they do as well. So again, there are creative ways that you can give your apprentices different experiences around the business to hit the 20% off job training. So yes, so there's other things as well you can do. So research tasks as well. So a lot of the work that we give our apprentices, we get them to go off and do some research. So working with our customer and marketing insights teams as well. So there are projects that you can give them specifically to help cover their knowledge, skills and behaviours that they require in the apprenticeship. I'll leave it at that, I think.
That is a very comprehensive list, and I think it shows how wide the definition of off-the-job training is. Thank you. Chloe, can we come to you next?
Yeah, of course. Did you want me to touch upon off-the-job training as well?
No, well, we can say that we're getting some answers through on funding drawdown, admin processes, that's some of the areas that some of our participants are saying they believe are barriers. So I don't know if you've got anything to add on either of those points.
Yeah, no, that of course. Sorry, I think there must be something wrong with my screen. I can't quite see the poll answers coming through, so apologies for that. But I can definitely kind of touch upon, I guess, maybe some of the perceived sort of administration barriers. So I'm slightly newer to. So I'm slightly newer to the sort of apprenticeship field. Sort of been dealing with it for around sort of 3 years within my role. I know as a firm there was a lot more sort of perceived admin with the move of our sort of accountancy apprenticeships and accountancy training, over to apprenticeships. But I think you get a lot of support from the training providers that you work with to sort of assist with that. And it's once you sort of know the process, it all does start to run smoothly. So we actually one of our training providers is First Intuition. I know we've got Gareth on the line as well. But we have a sort of dedicated account manager there who'll work with us to sort of assist with apprenticeship sign-ups and really sort of provide a lot of support with that administration side. On the flip side as well, there is a bit more administration for the learners sort of going through the programme, but the focus on the administration really is a sort of reflective piece, looking back, sort of building on the 20% off the job training, sort of looking at where those skills and behaviours are being learnt and applying it from the workplace and applying it to their learning. So it does sort of help consolidate and document what they're doing, just to sort of provide a well-rounded accountant at the end of the apprenticeship. So it does, although there is probably a little bit more work in that respect, it does help contribute to a more well-rounded accountant at the end of it. So it does have its benefits as well.
That's great. Thank you, Chloe. David, are you happy to give us some of your perceived challenges and how you've managed to make them work for you, get over those?
Yeah, of course. I'm not sure how I can follow the last two, but I'll certainly try. I think challenges like Chloe, we have been doing apprenticeships for a long time, and it takes a bit of getting used to it at the beginning. There's getting the processes in place, making sure that you've got the right support to support the apprentices on their journey, and that happens a lot with the training provider support that you get. So it's about, for me, it was always about picking the right training providers to help you achieve your goals. And we work with First Intuition and we work with Kaplan, which is one of the other big training providers, and they've offered us a lot of support. And at the beginning helped us understand how we could make apprenticeships work for us as a business. I've seen from the poll that the funding drawdown was quite high on the barriers that we have, and I know a lot of smaller businesses struggle to understand how they can access the funding, and we've been working with some of our smaller clients to help them access the funding. I think it goes back to that point that there is funding there, and if you choose the right training provider, or you understand the training providers and what they can support you with, they'll help you understand how to draw down, and you can actually create your own digital account now and request the apprenticeship funding that way. You do have to pay 5% of the costs, but the government do fund the 95%, and with the right training provider, the right programme, you get all the support that you need. And it's getting through that barrier, understanding what's available to you, who you can use, how you can use it, and making it work for your business. And things like the off-the-job training. As Charles said, there's lots of things that you probably do in your day-to-day that makes things, it makes it easier to understand what you can do. And I think it's the term off-the-job training. It's actually more than that. It is on-the-job training that's new learning. And when you're doing, even with many of our young apprentices, they're researching clients that they're working with. They're doing new jobs, and there's a lot of new learning in that, and we learn every day. So it's important to understand what is off-the-job training in its entirety. And just the last point I'll make on is the mentoring and support. It's really important that you're able to provide the support, and we've found, like Charles mentioned, people that have been on the apprenticeship route before and have experienced it are really good mentors for the new apprentices, and help, or anyone doing the apprenticeship route, and help them understand what they need to do to get through it.
Oh, that's fantastic, David. Thank you. And a nice segue into you, Gareth, because you've heard the importance of the right training provider to help. So from a training provider perspective, are you able to tell us how you help employers navigate some of the perceived challenges around about apprenticeship to make the apprenticeship programme work for them?
Yeah, certainly, and I'd completely agree with what David was saying, actually. I mean, the choice of training provider is really critical because they'll actually take away an awful lot of the hurdles, they'll take away a lot of the pain, whether that is advising on how to meet the off-the-job training, whether that's helping with the funding drawdowns and the relationship with the ESFA, the admin. I mean, a huge amount of the admin will actually be done by the training provider, so I think that's an important choice to make. And I would emphasize a few things that have already been said. I mean, you know, we've had a couple of comments around the off-the-job training, and I agree it's really badly named. So it sounds like the apprentice is going to be out of the office. I mean, all off-the-job training is, as David said, is it's if they're developing any new knowledge, new skills, new activities, and how much of an apprentice's time will be spent doing that. I mean, we see apprentices who are probably spending 60 or 70% of their time doing off-the-job training in the workplace, valuable, productive activity. Actually, half the challenge tends to be just identifying and recording the off-the-job training. But again, the training provider will help with that process. They may allocate coaches, for instance, to the apprentices. I'd back up also what Chloe was saying around the admin. I mean, to be, you know, yes, there is additional admin involved with an apprenticeship, and whilst the training provider will do a lot of it, you know, there will be additional admin for the employer to do. But actually, I always think of it as being constructive admin, because it's admin that's going to drive better achievement rates, it's going to drive better progression rates, better workplace skills, improved internal promotion opportunities, you know, even higher staff retention, more successful recruitment campaigns, which are all driven by the apprenticeship program. What is often ignored is the saving in what I think of as negative admin. You know, you're not going to have the same exam failures, the same performance issues, the same skills gaps and lack of qualifications. You're not going to have the same kind of staff turnover. So actually, I think that constructive admin is very worth investing in. But the other thing I've just seen in the poll, there was questions around, you know, kind of having staff buy-in, which I just wanted to make a particular point on. And in fact, I do a lot of work with our employers, talking to both the learners and the training managers about the importance of everybody committing to the scheme, everyone committing to the process. I think, you know, particularly for the apprentices themselves, there's often a bit of nervousness about the extra work they're going to have to do, but actually they're overlooking potentially the huge career benefits that their programs will deliver. You know, anything of such value, anything of such impact is going to be a bit of extra work. I mean, that's a truism in life, I think. And, you know, my view is, and it'd be interesting to see what the other panelists think, but, you know, a career in accountancy in this day and age certainly still demands the technical fundamentals it always has done. But if you're expecting a sustainable long-term career to be based on doing bank recs and tax computations, you know, you're already irrelevant, let alone in a few years' time. You know, the distance that these learners' careers will take them is driven by these broader skills, the skills and behaviours that the apprenticeships really deliver. And, you know, I talk, you know, regularly to the ACCA, to the accountancy awarding bodies, and it's clear that the industry is moving in a direction that is really going to make these broader skills and behaviours absolutely critical. But again, that's a whole area that the training provider would be talking to the employer about, talking to the apprentice about, you know, making sure that the training managers are well advised.
That's fantastic, Gareth, and I think that's a really positive way of looking at the admin. We shouldn't be calling it the admin burden or an additional admin. We should be thinking about it in its most positive sense. So I think that should be our message, I think, in and around some of the concerns about admin. We should be thinking about it as positive admin. Well, thanks everybody for your insight and interesting thoughts on that first question. As you'll see from the webinar, we do have additional resources available in our resources tab. We've got lots of information on our ACC employer pages, and as Gareth, David, Charles and Chloe I think have all pointed out, help is available through the training providers, and it's about ensuring that any organisation who wants to use an apprenticeship takes advantage of the resources that are available to them to ensure they get the most out of the apprenticeship. Now, we'll take the next audience poll question, so I think we'll start to see that coming up on screen shortly. And the question is, what might incentivize you to take on apprentices at this time? And there's 4 options to select from. So we'll now move to the next question for the panel. And everybody's given us really great insight before, so we're hoping to get more more insight here on what have you found to be the main benefits of hiring apprentices. And I suppose we can think about here, you know, how has the apprentice benefited your organisation, your team, and their mentors that we've heard about. David, can I come to you first on this question?
Yeah, of course. I always think it's a really good question. I mean, you talk about benefits, you talk about, you know, what can someone bring to your organisation? And when you start looking at apprentices, generally speaking, you're looking at someone who's just come from school or someone who's finished university and is eager to start a career in your industry, and they apply for it. What I find really interesting now is that eagerness that people have and they really want to get into accountancy, that they bring along with them a drive to do well, and they work hard, and in accountancy they do a number of subjects and exams over a 3 and sometimes 6 year period while learning on the job and, you know, running the life. And I'm always pleasantly surprised by how hard they actually work, and especially doing both. And I think the benefit for us is that you're getting this talent coming in who really wants to be there, who really wants to do their best, and they grow continuously, build new skills, and of course it helps us as a business grow, and, you know, move into the future with amazing talent who really wants to be there. And for me, there's you could list off bullet points of benefits, but that's really where it starts, is that someone wants to be part of your organisation, and is willing to come in, do the work hard, and carve out a career with us. And I think that's a real benefit.
Thanks, David. That sounds really positive. It's that mutual benefit, isn't it, for the apprentice and the employer. Charles, any thoughts from you on the main benefits that hiring apprentices means to your organisation?
Yeah, so the way I'd look at it, within Boots we have 2 streams. So we have new into the company starting apprenticeships, and then we also offer apprenticeships to our existing employees as well. So if I start with new to Boots, so to speak, what we see is that they have incredibly high pass rates. So if I compare an apprentice to the old traditional old pay-as-you-go route, we are seeing a noticed difference in their performance. So the pass rate for apprentices currently in Boots is 100%, and we've had about 50 people go through that. The number of retakes through the various stages is considerably less. It's probably about 10 to 20% lower than pay-as-you-go routes. And what we're also seeing is the retention rates are much higher because they're more wedded to the business and understanding how they can progress through that business. We also see in their colleague engagement surveys that they have much higher engagement scores with the business as a whole and are keen to get involved in other activities, not just their day-to-day jobs. So, for example, at Boots, we have various outreach programs working with local communities, and the apprentices are always keen to get involved in these because not only does it help them develop new skills, but it also helps with the way they're thinking, and the way they're thinking about Boots is how can I get involved and be seen to be getting involved in other activities that are good for the benefit of both me and the company. So they are much more engaged from that perspective. We also see them that they get involved in helping and supporting and training other apprentices around the businesses. So we have, for example, we have commercial buying apprentices and the finance apprentices doing some of the more softer skills training together. So rather than just have finance in isolation, we are getting those elements of the training program delivered consistently across the entire business. So they're building their networks and that side of things as well, which probably is why it's leading to the higher engagement scores. In terms of our existing staff, so we've created various apprenticeships for those guys as well. So we're not seeing this as just for newbies. So we have senior leadership development programs, program management, data analytics, and what we've built within Boots is a career pathway So a really good example for, say, the finance world, bringing it back to finance, is if some of our students decided to do the level 4 accountancy apprenticeship and do the certificate for ACCA, so the first stage of ACCA, but then in the area that they're working, say finance shared services, that's probably the most finance technical side of things they actually need. So what we have now is a career pathway where they can jump off onto the senior leader development program. So they can take those finance skills, which will stay with them forever, and then jump onto other programs as well. And what's really good with the apprenticeships, because it's very transparent about the skills you've learned, talking to the training providers, they can go, okay, so they won't need to do this because they've already done that. But this is where their skills will be elevated as well. So we are thinking about the person as a whole and their career pathway, and apprenticeships just form part of that journey. But by having these clear pathways and being able to share these with apprentices when they first join, or even if, like I said, they're existing members, they can see, actually, this is something I really want to get involved in. So a really good one for finance at the moment is we have a lot of people that are saying, well, actually, true finance isn't where I want to be, but I can use a lot of my finance skills in the data analytics industry. So we're having a lot of people that are getting part qualified, happy with their lot, and then jumping onto other apprenticeships as well. So I think for us at Boots, it was just the apprenticeships was bringing together a lot of things that companies already did, but actually putting steroids behind it. And obviously, because you've got a notional pot of money that has gone, that you can claw back on, accessing that money almost as a free training budget went down really well.
Great, thanks. That sounds as you're approaching it in a very holistic way, Charles, and Boots, and you're really seeing the benefits and strong performance and really strong retention and positive engagement. Chloe, is there anything you'd like to add about some of the main benefits of hiring apprentices before we move to Gareth?
Yeah, I think for us, it really just helps provide a structured approach to learning. So focusing sort of not only on our trainees' sort of technical skills, but also, people skills and behavioural skills. So two of our key values are sort of client focus and excellent service. So we feel the apprenticeship really helps develop those skills in amongst our sort of more junior accountancy sort of trainees. The apprenticeship standard also helps sort of focus on skills which can help them progress in their career, focuses leadership, project management skills, sort of how to work effectively in a team, and that really helps benefit the firm as well, having a good pool of talent to promote from within. We have a number of senior managers, directors who started as a trainee within the firm, and that's something that we want to continue to see. And we really feel that the apprenticeship structure sort of helps support that offering and development of internal talent.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you. Gareth, just quickly from you, what would you say the main benefits are for employers for hiring apprentices?
Yeah, I mean, I completely support everything that's already been said. I mean, an apprenticeship is so much more than just a professional qualification, and an apprentice is so much more than just an accountancy trainee. You know, for me, the secret sauce is those broader skills and behaviours such as kind of teamworking, negotiation, leadership, skills that's taken me personally about 30 years to develop through kind of trial and error and an awful lot of error. And to see these young adults at the start of their careers having these critical skills embedded in such a structured, robust way is fantastic. I was chatting to a client recently about why she loves supporting apprentices, and she said because they don't just train current accountants, they develop future leaders. To me, that is the key. And I think, this is a time when recruiting experienced, qualified staff is getting harder and harder. So the opportunity for employers to grow their own talent, to really immerse them in the culture of their organisation, maybe rotate them through the organisation, see them advance to senior leadership positions. I mean, that's so attractive. And whilst there are clear financial benefits of apprenticeships, the funding for the training, there's incentives obviously available at the moment till the end of March. The fact you save employers NI on apprentices under 25, but actually for me the three key things are the better skills they deliver, the better structure of the programs, and the better support that the apprentices get both from their own employers and from the training provider.
That's great. And I think there's some really strong messages coming through about the focus, not just on technical knowledge, but the skills and behaviours, the holistic approach. And I think that last point, Gareth, on and actually Chloe was echoing, I think Charles and David as well, it's that real talent development and taking it as a holistic approach to talent development. And I like the comment, it's so much more than just the apprenticeship standard. Now we're going to move on to our final poll question, and this is a free text box answer. So the question is, what support would you want from ACCA in relation to apprenticeships? And you can type your answers into the chat box. And that takes us on to our final question for the panel, which is for the employers. Why did you choose ACCA for your apprenticeships? And for Gareth, what would you recommend as to why employers should ACCA for an apprenticeship? Can I come to you first, Gareth? Is that possible?
Yeah, of course you can. I mean, I've been, in fact, next month is my 25-year anniversary of starting training accountants, actually. So I've been training ACCA students for a quarter of a century. And one of the things I love about the likes of LinkedIn is seeing so many of my former ACCA students moving on to such incredible careers, within the organisations that they trained at, moving into senior finance positions, senior management, managing partner positions. The ACCA is globally recognised as a leading accountancy qualification. Its syllabus content is really well suited to roles across all sorts of different sectors. It's accountancy practice, it's in industry, it's across the public sector. I work with a lot of NHS organisations that train ACCA. And I think particularly as the link in with the apprenticeships, I think of it like sort of three concentric circles, because in the middle you've got the robust central core of technical knowledge, from foundation bookkeeping and costing through, technical FR and tax up to things like business strategy and risk management. So that's the core knowledge. Surrounding that, you've then got these critical career skills and behaviours that the apprenticeship standards then deliver. So the communication, the adaptability, professional skepticism, business insight, leadership, as we've mentioned. But then to me, actually surrounding that, you've then got the other ACCA professional quotients, the likes of creativity, digital, emotional intelligence, vision. That's a pretty difficult combination to beat, I think. And, the fact that at the final level, the optional papers allow specialisation that is relevant to different working environments. The quarterly exam sittings give a huge amount of flexibility to when students can sit, how they can actually approach their studies during a year. And the fact that the ACCA offers such great support both for employers and students. It's a winning combination, I think.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. That certainly sounded a winning proposition. Chloe, can we come to you next as to why you chose ACCA for your apprenticeships?
So we've always had ACCA students across the business, so it really just seemed like a natural progression and sort of move over to the apprenticeship standard. So we've always taken on graduates, but also for our school leaver programs, they usually start off on sort of an AAT level 4 and now move on to the ACCA. So again, it just offers a really good progression for our students, really.
Great, thank you. David, are you happy to share your insights?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to mirror what everyone said again, but it's a qualification for us as an organisation that really, alongside the apprenticeship, tracks the journey and allows people to build the knowledge, the skills, the behaviours, and the roles that they're going to do, and it enables us to, build our talent of the future and give them the knowledge that they need from a technical point of view as well as behavioural. And like Gareth said at the beginning, we've got so many of our managers and senior leaders who have gone through the ACCA pathway and it's led them on to great success. So we find that it helps us build that in our talent and the successes we've had from it and the support that we get from the ACCA to help make it successful is amazing. And on to once they become qualified, there's lots of help and support there for all of the members to continue that career journey. specifically the competency framework that the ACC have. It's absolutely massive and it's amazing, and it gives you so much support and guidance to help progress your career. So yeah, excellent.
That's fantastic. So I think that goes back to that holistic approach of, it's not just about taking people to the point of qualification and completing their apprenticeship, it's going beyond. Charles, are you happy to share your thoughts on this?
Yeah, that's fine. I think I'd echo everything everybody else has said. I think where ACCA stands out for Boots is, as everyone's alluded to, is it's almost taken as given that people will have the technical skills in their qualification, where ACCA is going with the quotients and linking with the apprenticeships. It's the softer skills, it's those transferable skills that will stand the test of time. And ultimately, the higher up you go in a business, the less actual technical accounting you do. So you will always refer to someone else, probably that's generally more junior, to say, what do you think of this, or what's the implications on this? So having that ability to do all of the mindset stuff, the curiosity, the probing from an early age stands them in really good test of time. Even if they don't venture into more of the technical side of things, if like my role, you're doing more of the business partnering, that professional skepticism stands you in a really good position. So most of the conversations I have will be dealing with commercial teams that are very good negotiators, and they're trying to negotiate with finance all the time to get things done. So again, thinking of the ACCA qualification and how the training and the support that they get helps them on this journey to be a good, rounded, not only finance professional, but what I would class as a business professional is really, really useful. So much so that we have got finance people, including myself, that actually left finance and now work in the business. So I left finance and worked in the business for about five or 6 years. But always having that background of finance stands you in a really good position. So yeah, so I think it's great to see ACCA really support us as well as a business. They come out and give presentations to not only our students but to our members, and even people that are part of the wider Boots finance community that aren't part of ACCA are more than happy to come and share their research into things like AI and robotics as well, and be involved in the research papers. So yeah, so I think ACCA are second to none at the moment.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. Thank you, Charles. And again, I think we've seen we've heard the messages coming through about enthusiasm, about the holistic nature of the approach of the apprenticeships, and I think we can see that coming through in relation to some of the answers that have been given there about why you would choose ACCA for your apprenticeship. I think it's been really interesting to hear that whilst we may have started at the very top of the session talking about administrative burdens, and that might have sounded quite negative in relation to some of the things that may have put people off in taking on apprentices, the experiences from you as employers and also from Gareth as a training provider has demonstrated that there's real enthusiasm and actually real benefits to both the individual apprentices, but also to employers in taking on apprentices, and real value in the business about the breadth of experience that they're gaining and how they can really add value to the business, but can also feel that they're really engaged with the business. So I think there's been some really positive messages coming out of the comments that you've all been and insights you've been providing today, and I really hope that individuals listening to this webinar take away some of these positives and think that this is actually something that they can use for their own business. So I would just like to thank you all for the panel for your really, really insightful comments and thoughts. It's been fantastic. We've also had some great responses from our participants, so thank you very much for responding to the polls and for inputting your questions on the Q&A, and these will have been answered through the chat box. As I said before, you'll find that there are links to some useful information that we think would be helpful to you. That can be found in the resource centre on this webinar. And I would also encourage you to look at the ACCA pages, certainly for employers, also for training providers, to see to ensure that you can find out the information that you're looking for. I would also encourage you to continue to ask questions that maybe come up, because questions will certainly be, the chat box will be available for you to input your questions after this webinar finishes. So thank you very much for logging in to listen and to asking and answering your questions. An on-demand version of this webinar will be available in 24 hours time, and can be accessed using the same audience link that you used to enter this session. And we would be really grateful if you could take a few moments to complete the feedback forms that you should be seeing on your screen shortly. And can I just say how much we value your thoughts and opinions on these topics, and they will certainly help us to deliver our offerings going forward. And can I just say a very big thank you to Charles, to Chloe, to David and to Gareth for their time and their insights today. It's been hugely helpful. Thank you, everyone.